to the Dixie Belle YouTube channel. I have a coffee because it's pretty cold here in the UK at the moment. So I am a furniture painter. I'm also a Dixie Belle brand ambassador. I always forget to mention my own business. So for those asking last week, if you're here this week, my business is called FAF Designs, FAFF Designs, and I'm on all the places. So I'm here on YouTube. I've got my own channel, but I'm on all the other ones as well. And I go live here every Tuesday at this time. So this time for me is 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Obviously, if you're elsewhere in the world, slightly different time. So today I'm going to do a project that some of you who follow me may have already seen. If you don't follow me, you won't have seen it. It's a table that I finished quite a while ago and then I dropped something on. So I'm having to redo the top, which is really frustrating because I had a nice paint blend on the top and also there was a transfer on there. So pretty annoyed. Good morning, Shannon from North Carolina. Pretty annoyed about that, but I've said it before on my social media that this month has just been a little bit chaotic. Everything seems to be going wrong for some reason. So I think this is just part of it. This is just part of the test. So I'm going to do a bit of paint blending today, and I'm going to show you how amazing Dixie Belle Paint is to blend. Now, disclaimer, I'm not an expert in paint blending. It's not really my thing as such. There are probably people out there that do it better than me. I'm not saying that, you know, my way is the only way, but it's the way that I do it. And that's quite often the case with painting and stuff and the creative world. There's more than one way of doing something. I'm just going to show you how I do it. So what I'm going to do is blend these two colours together. Hi Tina. So this is called Antebellum Blue, and these are both colours from the Dixie Belle's chalk mineral paint range. This is called Haint Blue. Now, the thing with blending is, if you are new to blending, or if you are rubbish, or you think you're rubbish at blending, you're probably not. You're probably just choosing hard colours. So what I will say is that some paints blend better than others. Obviously, all different paints have different qualities and they lend themselves better to different things. Chalk mineral paint, without sounding biased, but obviously I am, you know, I do work with Dixie Belle. I'm not kidding when I say it's the best paint for blending. Phenomenal. They also do a silk all-in-one mineral paint that's an all-in-one paint. It's got a built-in top coat. Not the best for blending. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means that it's got different properties. It's better for other things. You can still do it, but if you want to make your life easier, try this. It's so good for blending. Terra clay paint is also very good for blending as well, but I just love how this paint blends. It looks beautiful. The other thing with paint blending is colours, to bear in mind colours. So if you are blending two colours that are similar, it's going to be a lot easier to blend than if you were choosing two completely different colours. Again, it doesn't mean it can't be done. It just means that if you are new to this, you might consider using two greens or two blues, like a lighter one and a darker one, as opposed to grabbing a red and a blue and trying to blend them, because it's going to make your life more difficult. Like I say, it can still be done. I saw something the other day and it was pink blended into mustard. It looked really pretty. Such a nice colour combination. You wouldn't think it, but it was. But it's going to be harder than to blend two colours. Equally, if you want to make something look like your furniture is like glowing or like it's got a little bit of a highlight, just choose a colour a couple of shades lighter than the one that you're using, the main colour. So that's why I'm using Haint Blue and not white, because white, traditionally speaking, you need more coats to cover, so you're already going to be battling with that. A lot of people automatically think if you're using white as a if you want to highlight or make a colour lighter, people automatically think white. If you want to make a colour darker, people automatically think black. There are problems with using those two colours, but if you can use two blues, so a darker one for shading and a lighter one for the highlights, it's a lot easier. Trust me, it is a lot easier. So I'm going to use those two colours because traditionally speaking, using two blues, it is easier. It is. I find it easier anyway. You wouldn't also necessarily have to go with such a light tone. This is, I think, the lightest blue that Dixie Belle do. It's a very pale pastel blue. You could go even for something like the Gulf or something like that, which is a lot darker than this, but it's still lighter than this. So the closer your colours are together, the easier it is to blend together. The next thing is brushes. So usually these are the brushes that I will use for blending. Obviously, as you can see, they're very different, but the bristles are similar. They're made out of natural bristles. This is the best dang brush, and you can use this for lots of different things. You can use this for blending. You can also use it for applying wax. It's a multi-purpose brush, which I love. This one is the one that I'm leaning towards the most for blending at the minute, depending on the surface. So I like this one because it's got nice flat bristle. It's a flat brush. Obviously this one's a round brush, but I find that this one gives you a really pretty blend. This one I tend to blend and swirl my colours together like this to kind of merge the edge. So I'd use if I was going for more like a boho blend, or like a smoky blend. This one I would use if I just wanted it to kind of, the furniture to glow. So I'm just wanting like a dark edge and a light centre, which is what I'm going to do on this table. The colours that I'm going to use, I've already gone through. I'm going to use two separate brushes to apply those two different colours. So what you normally find with blending is that you want a paintbrush for your colours. So two separate brushes, one for the dark blue, one for the light blue, and then your blending brush, and keep that fairly clean. The other thing you're going to need is water. Water. This is going to be what makes that kind of paint blend seamless and also stops you getting texture, because obviously your paint is wanting to dry as you're putting it on the surface. By spritzing a minute amount of water, and I'm talking a small amount. You don't want your piece swimming in water and dripping all over the place, because it's going to move the paint around too much on the surface. If you water your paint down too much, it's just going to slip and slide everywhere and it'll just be a muddy mess. A light spritz of water will just keep the paint open and active so that you can manoeuvre it and basically get them to melt together before they dry. This is just tap water in here. I know some people use bottled water, but I just use tap water. And this is why these spray bottles are so good, because the mist is that fine, it barely picks it up on camera. So if you've got something that gives you a load of water, like on the surface at once, you're going to get water droplets and it's going to put too much water down. You need a fine mister like this. So let's blend some paint. I'm going to turn the camera around and point it down if I can. How do I do it? I always forget how to do it on here. Okay, so this is the table. You might recognize it from, like I say, my content that I've already completed it once, but unfortunately there was a big old dent on the top because, well, sometimes that's what happens when you are working on multiple pieces of furniture in a very small space and you're quite clumsy like I am. So the first thing I'm going to do is, you'll notice this is obviously blue. Underneath here is grey primer, and then I've put a coat of the blue because I like to put a coat of paint down first. Some people don't. Some people go straight in with a paint blend. But I like to put down a coat of either the darkest colour if you're using two colours, or if you're using three, I would probably go with the middle colour personally. But I like to put a plain coat of paint down. As you can see, it's a bit patchy because there is grey primer under here, so it's not like it's full coverage, but obviously we're going to build the coverage up when we blend. I'm just going to quickly lightly sand it. So this is a Dixie Belle sanding sponge. This is equivalent to a 220 grit, but I have already used it on another piece, so it's worn down a little bit. So this is just going to, that's just going to make sure there's nothing on that surface. that is going to give me any texture. And then I'm just going to wipe any dust off the surface. See there's a little bit that the sanding has picked up, a little tiny bit of imperfection. It could have been something in the primer, it could have been something in the paint, but if you don't sand first, that is just going to keep showing up on every coat of paint that you put on there. So that's gone off, and then the next thing we're going to do is a light misting of water, like that. That's it. And then I'm going to open my paint. That might help if I've already done that. So depending on how much paint you put on the surface is how much of each colour you put on the surface. It's going to give you a slightly different outcome. So for this, if you saw the piece when it was done, I basically just had a slight kind of glow on the furniture. So most of the colour in the centre was Haint Blue, and then there was just kind of, it faded into the Antebellum Blue, which is the darker one. So I'm just using a nice clean brush to put the Antebellum Blue down. Try and get it even as well, so that you've got a nice even thin coat of paint. You don't want to use too much paint because it's going to make it really difficult to blend. And then separate brush, this is the Haint Blue. So this is going to look almost white, but it is a very kind of pastel shade. I'm going to take it right up to where the Antebellum Blue is, kind of right up to the edge. I'm not going to blend it at this point. I'm just making sure there's an even coat of this blue down. Like so. And then another spritz of water. I should probably turn my heater off, actually. I've got a heater on down here. Probably turn that off. The other thing I like to do is just lightly mist my brush as well. Like that. And then I hold it down here just for personal preference. I find it gets the best grip. And then all you're going to do is melt those two colours together. So this is the first coat going on. Bear that in mind. Also, like I said, the paler the colour, the more difficult the coverage is going to be. And that is why I like putting down a coat of paint first. But I am going to obviously build this up with a second coat. So this is just going to be the first kind of rough blend, if you like. So can you see, by keeping my brush in the same kind of position all the way round, it is just melting the colours together. So the beautiful thing about Dixie Belle Paint is that when you mix it together, it doesn't go muddy. So it doesn't kind of muddy up, and that's because the pigment in the paint is really, really good. So the colours don't muddy together. You just get a really nice kind of seamless transition between one colour and the other. So we've kind of blurred that line, and that's looking really pretty. Just make sure you've got no bristles from your natural bristle brush in the paint, because that does happen with natural bristles. So because I've just put my Haint Blue like in a fairly big circle, we've just got the glow kind of going out to the edges. But if you'd have bought the Antebellum Blue and just put a tiny little dot of Haint Blue in the centre, obviously more Antebellum Blue would be prominent. Then what I'm going to do is just clean my brush off. So this is just going to take the majority of the paint off the bristles, because if your brush gets too loaded with paint, you're just going to be continuously moving the paint around on the surface, and that is going to get muddy. So can you see in the centre how we've not got quite as good coverage? So all I'm going to do is really lightly just smooth that out. And if you can see your paint starting to drag and you're getting a little bit of texture, just very, very lightly spritz the surface. Again, you don't want too much water because it will just become a big old mess. So I'm just going to take this Haint Blue slightly out more, like this. I'm just going to clean my brush off again. And then I'm just going to go round in that circular motion to kind of melt the edge together. So you panicked then, didn't you, when I did that? But that was just bringing the Haint Blue slightly out further into the Antebellum Blue. And this will need 2 coats for full coverage. And again, I'm going to make it, the second blend will be the blend, obviously, that is, you know, the kind of perfect blend. All I'm doing is putting my colours down here. So I don't really make this kind of step perfect, because obviously there's going to be a second coat going over the top. But that's how easy it is. And the other thing to mention is that I'm not pressing on. I don't know if you can see how lightly I am pressing on. So I'll put you at that angle. I am literally just brushing the surface like this. What you don't want to do is make your bristles do this on the surface, because you're just going to drag the paint around and create texture, which obviously you don't want. You want to make it look nice and smooth. Picked up a bit of a lump of Antebellum Blue there. And as long as you keep spritzing that water on your surface, you can keep playing around with that for as long as you need to get it to where you're happy with it. That looks pretty similar to how I had it before I'm just going to put the tripod up. Where's the camera flippy thing? Before I accidentally damaged the top. But that looks pretty similar. So that's the first coat. The second, obviously that needs to completely dry. Then I'll do a second coat in exactly the same way, but I'll just perfect it. If there's any areas where, you know, I'm not kind of happy with coverage, it just helps with complete coverage. Thank you, Tina. Well, mine did look lovely until I damaged the top, moving it around, and then I had to redo it. I've already done this table once, so that's a bit of a pain, but there we go. But it's good to show you how to do it. But that's how I blend paint. It's very easy. Obviously, it is going to be easier on a smaller surface like that than it is doing it on a huge, great big piece. So if you're new to it, try it on a small surface like that. I personally like doing it on a circular design. I just think it makes it easier. I don't know why. Than on a square design. Again, personal preference. And again, the 2 colours. So if you're going to blend 2 paints together and you're new to it, try 2 colours that are similar. So 2 blues, 2 greens, 2 reds, you get the gist. And that's it. So next week, that was a super short live, wasn't it? I can't really show you anything else. There's no point. So is the second coat truly needed? It looks beautiful to me. Yes, I would say it is in this case. I'll turn you around again. You see the camera lies. So I'll tell you what I can see on here. So here, this side is slightly darker because I've pulled too much Antebellum Blue into the centre, and then the rest of it is absolutely fine. Also, the centre hasn't got the best coverage because it is such a light colour. So I will just do exactly the same thing. Wait for it to completely dry, do exactly the same thing, and I'll pull that Haint Blue out over this bit, so that it looks kind of even all the way around. Because to me, I see this here has gone a little bit muddy, and that happens. This is the beauty of building up your layers, thin layers, because you can perfect the next one. So here, what's happened is, obviously, all the way around the edge, you've got the Antebellum Blue, and then you've got the Haint Blue, and then it's kind of, the line is blurred here. Here, I've gone too far. I've overworked it. So you've lost the Antebellum Blue a little bit around here. You've lost the Haint Blue here. It's just kind of gone a little bit of a all over. Do you see what I mean? So that's what I'm going to perfect on my second coat. Again, the coverage is also something that I will build up on the second coat, because if I zoom you right in, you can see the coverage right in the centre where the light blue is covering the antebellum blue base coat. It's not quite perfect. The coverage isn't quite right. So that is why I'm going to do 2 coats. And I always say, no matter what you're doing, whether it's primer or an all-in-one paint or blending, thin layers are always better than trying to do it all in one. If you do it all in one and you've got a paint blend and it's perfect and you've done 1 coat, don't mess with it. But I know that I can make that slightly better. But I knew I was going to do 2 coats. I did 2 coats on the last one, and it just helps build that coverage as well. What you'll find is, generally speaking, you'll get better colour pigmentation with 2 coats. So 1 coat might look absolutely fine, but the second coat is where you're going to get that coverage and you'll really get that depth of colour building up. So yes, also if you've done an undercoat, I know some people map out their colours. So say for example, if you're doing a piece that's like pink and red, you might want to paint your pink stripe, paint your red stripe, leave it to dry, and then blend the 2. Like, there's loads of different ways to do it. This heat is burning my leg. Hang on. You can go off. I'm like hop, hop, because it's burning inside of my leg. So you might want to do that. So like I say, I could have put the antebellum blue around the edge, put a circle of the haint blue in the middle, and then left that to dry. That could be your first coat. You don't necessarily have to blend that first coat. I know some people do it that way round, and then they only blend their second coat. You could do it that way. This is just the way I do it. Everyone does it slightly different. There's probably, I don't know, at least 10 different ways that you could blend paint and use different things, but that's just the way I do it. That's the equipment I use. So I will leave this to dry. I'm going to do a second coat of this off camera, and what I will then do is put this to one side, and I'll come back next week and I'll put the transfer on it with you if you want. I'll show you the transfer that I'm going to use. One of my favourite transfers. So, yeah, we'll do that next week if you want to. And that's all I've got to say on the matter. There's lots of messages held for review. Again, like there was last week. Lots of odd people on here, but also lots of awesome people on here. So if you're one of the odd people, don't come back. If you're one of the awesome people, come back next week and we'll put a transfer on, and we'll do that. Although it is slightly boring watching people put a transfer on, I might put the majority of the transfer on and then just leave a little bit to put on with you, and then show you how I seal a transfer. So that's what I'll do next week. Sorted. And I don't know if anybody else can read these messages that are popping up on the screen, but a little bit weird. Not going to lie. Not going to lie. Anyway, I'm going to drink my coffee. I'm going to carry on. I've got loads of work on in the studio at the moment. I've got this piece here, not playing ball. This piece here nearly went on the bonfire. Very, very nearly went on the bonfire. But if you want to see the full story of what happened with this one, why it's got no doors, why the doors ended up getting smashed to smithereens, you're going to have to subscribe to my YouTube channel, because the full video will be on there, hopefully this week. Hopefully, if I can get it finished and pull it off. If not, we'll say no more about it. And it will end up on the bonfire. So, thank you for joining me, as always. And I will catch you next week for the transfer. See ya.